Today we're going to be wiring. Now, one of you in the last video commented asking for a detailed, in-depth wiring video, so here it is. Now, as I showed in the previous video, this guitar is going to have a very high output humbucker in the bridge position and a traditional Tele style single coil in the neck position. I'm going to be installing 5 mini toggle switches, or dip-in dot switches as Dan Thompson likes to call them, because with 3 separate coils I can do a variety of different tonal options simply by splitting the humbucker, wiring things with series and parallel. So let me just give you a quick rundown of the wiring diagram. So if we start off here, this is our humbucker. Our humbucker has a north start and north finish, that is for the north coil, and a south finish and a south start. Those are for the south coil, and then there is a bare shielding wire. So as for our switches, this one's going to be a coil split, this one's going to be series and parallel for the humbucker, this one's going to be an on and off toggle switch for the humbucker, this one's going to be an on and off toggle switch for the single coil, and this one here is going to be a series parallel switch for both pickups. Now here we're going to have a master volume and a master tone, and then this is our output jack. Now, the way these switches work is they have 6 mini lugs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, it's easy to visualize it like this. If you look at one side, so just 1, 2, 3, when the switch is up, these two are connected, and there's a circuit. So the electricity can flow that way, and it's on. When it's this way, if those two are connected, but not this one, then it's off. But if these two are connected, then it's on there. So you can have 2 different positions, multiply that by this side, because there's 2 of them in this one switch, and you have a huge variety of different wiring options. Now back to this, right? So this one here is going to be for switching between series and parallel. So if you understand electricity, what series is it's one closed circuit. So if you break anywhere in there, the circuit's gone. And all of the things are wired one after the other. Now parallel, that's different, because that's like wiring 2 things up separately. I'm trying to simplify this a lot here, so don't really take my words for fact. You can look up the definitions if you don't actually understand, but basically parallel, in this case, if you have things in parallel, you can disconnect one from the circuit and the other one will still work. Now that's not really the absolute definition of parallel, but for these purposes, I guess that's sort of how I'll explain it. If you want to understand it a little better, Dan Thompson from Guns and Guitars made a video explaining how to wire up a series and parallel switch, so definitely check that out. So this here is our series and parallel switch. So you'll see all of the wires from the humbucker go here, right? Now this switch here is the switch for the north coil, I believe, and this turns it on and off. So what that means is when this switch is turned to parallel, this coil can be turned off and only the south coil will be running. Now up next we got just a simple 2 lug, like remember how I showed it in the beginning. If you cover up one side, it's just an on and off switch. So this here is our hot wire, this switch can turn it off, this here is our ground wire. Now when we get to here, this is pretty much wired the same way as this switch, so it's series and parallel. And we got another one of these on and off switches here, so you can turn on and off the single coil. Now when we get to a potentiometer, this is slightly different, because what this does is it's a variable resistor. So when it's all the way to one side, these 2 lugs are on. When it's all the way to the other side, these 2 lugs are on. If it's in the middle, it's a blend. So what this means is for the volume pot, when it's all the way to one side, you got these 2 connectors on and it is on. But when it's the other way, it's off, because then you have this disconnected from the circuit. Now because this, the hot wire, goes back to the tone pot, you can use the tone pot to control how much of your signal is being taken away. So using a capacitor here, which is going to be an orange drop capacitor, it takes off some of the high end while leaving still enough signal to be taken to the output jack. I probably butchered some of that explanation, so feel free to correct me in the comments below. If we move this out of the way, bring in here, you'll see I got all of the switches and the 2 potentiometers right here. So because this wiring harness isn't really going to be put in the guitar just yet, I'm wiring up everything except for the pickups. So if we slide our diagram in here, let me zoom out a bit, you can see that I think I can probably start by connecting these 2 switches for the series, parallel, and the coil split. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do this with scissors because my wire stripper isn't really the best. This isn't really the best way to do this either, but at least it'll work. To keep things simple, I'll probably just feed this through this lug here. Come on, get in there. There we go. I told you that this would be a very frustrating video. Things are going to go wrong. I know what I'm doing, sorta, but I'm not a professional. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so it's rough, but we got that in there. Now I'm going to take this end of the wire, connect these two through here. Oh, what's the best way to do this? Yeah, that works. Feed that through like so. Then push this through. Okay, after tons of struggling and frustration, there we go. Those two are connected. I'm not going to be soldering just yet because I do not want to mess something up and then have to unsolder, and then you get the idea. So now the next wires I'm going to do, I'll do this one to this one. So I'll measure out my lead, a little twist, then stick that in there, then stick that in there. I told you, this video is full of frustration. I am very, very bad at this. There we go. Okay, so now we gotta connect this wire to here, this wire to here, and then these two together. Come on, get in there, get in there. This one in here. Yeah, so when I told you this would be a frustrating video, I really meant it. If you're still watching and somehow haven't got bored of my annoying voice yet, then subscribe, because I'm going through a ton of pain here. You know what, I'm just gonna, stupid thing, there, just gonna leave it like that. That's it. Now these two lugs here are supposed to be connected together, but I think I can get away with just putting a blob of solder, so I'm not gonna really fuss about that. I just realized I'm using all black wire. It's not gonna be that big of an issue because I'm not really dealing here with stuff that requires different ground and hot connections and stuff like that. It's mostly just making sure I follow the diagram. There we go. I have that connected up now. I seriously apologize if you expected this video to be very exciting. Yeah. It's probably like, what, 4 minutes into it right now, and you haven't really experienced much. This is so frustrating and intense. I am greatly sorry, for this video is definitely not what you subscribed for. But if it is, well, there we go. That's hooked up. When we get to it, that'll be hooked up. So now we can finally get to the actual process of the soldering. So I got my soldering iron. My camera's gonna die. This is eventful. You know, how about we just come back once I'm finished with this so you can avoid all my frustration and I can focus on this, because with the camera here it's just a little tricky. Yeah, so I'll snap my fingers and it'll be done. So, surprisingly, it wasn't too frustrating. I didn't actually have any big mess ups. These pots, surprisingly, were coated in some sort of flux, because normally one of the biggest issues I have is the solder won't want to stick to the solid metal surface, but it was able to stick to these pots with no problem, so it's perfectly fine. Now, I'm just going to run a quick test to see if there is continuity in the circuit and make sure the switches are working as they should. Okay, so this is probably the most frustrating part of the process. I didn't actually film it, but I checked with my voltmeter and everything works. So we're all good. Thanks for watching. This was a boring video, but if you watched, thank you, I guess. Bye.